Good evening, my shining stars. It's so good to be back with you tonight on this Saturday evening. And I'm so excited. There's more of you. 4 more subscribers. We're up to 28 beautiful shining stars joining me, and I couldn't be happier. More shining stars in my sky. I'm so thankful for each and every one of you. From what I can tell, it's across the U.S. and shout outs to India and England, I think. And I'm just so happy that more of you are joining us for reading time. I love to read you to sleep in my corner, so let's go turn out the rest of the lights. Let's turn out the lights and get it cozy. Ooh. And get it cozy in here. Oh, I love when the light gets more yellow like that. That cozy candlelight look. Let's go over here. Turn off the hall light. So, tappity taps on our way. On our way to the hall light. And you turn out your lights too. Oh, it gets so dark. Turn out your lights too. Get cozy. Grab a blanket. Settle in. Because it's time to dive back into Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Alright, let's get cozy. I hope everybody had a wonderful Saturday. It was my first Saturday off in a while, and we had a yard sale at my sister's house. It was awesome. We had a great time. So good to be outside. The kids got to run around and play. The adults got to get rid of some things that maybe they don't use, but you know what they say about one man's trash. So many people came through and found some treasures amongst the things that we no longer needed. So that is a blessing. It's a blessing for everyone involved. Good old yard sale. So, all right, my lovely shining stars, where were we? That's right. So she had just come up on the guards, really they're cards, painting the rose bushes red instead of white. And the queen has already set off with her head. And so we'll just read the last part of this page. And boom. Yeah. So we'll start where we left off. So she's in the courtyard. And the queen had just said, let's see, we'll go one page back. One page back. And so, yes, so the queen questioned her about the gardeners that laid flat once they saw her coming around the rose tree. And the queen Queen asked Alice who they were, and Alice said, "How should I know?" Said Alice, surprised at her own courage. "It's no business of mine." The Queen turned crimson with fury, and after glaring at her for a moment like a wild beast, began screaming, "Off with her head! Off with her!" "Nonsense," said Alice, very loudly and decidedly, and the Queen was silent. The King laid his hand upon her arm and timidly said, "Consider, my dear, she is only a child." The Queen turned angrily away from him, and she said to the knave, "Turn them over." The knave did so very carefully with one foot. "Get up," said the Queen, in a shrill, loud, I guess it would more be like, "Get up," said the Queen, in a shrill, loud voice, and the 3 gardeners instantly jumped up and began bowing to the King, the Queen, the royal children, and everybody else. "Leave off that," screamed the Queen. "You make me giddy." And then, turning to the rose tree, she went on, "What have you been doing here?" "May it please your Majesty," said two in a very humble tone, going down on one knee as he spoke, "we were trying—" "I see," said the Queen, who had meanwhile been examining the roses. "Off with their heads," and the procession moved on, 3 of the soldiers remaining behind to execute the unfortunate gardeners who ran to Alice for protection. "You shan't be beheaded," said Alice, and she put them into a large flower pot that stood near. The 3 soldiers wandered about for a minute or 2, looking for them, and then quietly marched off after the others. "Are their heads off?" shouted the Queen. "Their heads are gone, your Majesty, if it please your Majesty," the soldiers shouted in reply. "That's right," shouted the Queen. "Can you play croquet?" The soldiers were silent and looked at Alice, as the question was evidently meant for her. "Yes," shouted Alice. "Come on, then," roared the Queen, and Alice joined the procession, wondering very much what would happen next. It's a very fine day," said a timid voice at her side. She was walking by the white rabbit, who was peeping anxiously into her face. "Very," said Alice. "Where's the Duchess?" "Hush, hush," said the rabbit in a low, hurried tone. He looked anxiously over his shoulder as he spoke, and then raised himself upon tiptoe, put his mouth close to her ear, and whispered, "She's under sentence of execution." "What for?" said Alice. "Did you say, 'What a pity'?" the rabbit asked. "No, I didn't," said Alice. "I don't think it's at all a pity. I said, 'What for?'" "She boxed the Queen's ears," the rabbit began. Alice gave a little scream of laughter. "Oh, hush," the rabbit whispered in a frightened tone. "The Queen will hear you. You see, she came rather late, and the Queen said—" "Get to your places," shouted the Queen in a voice of thunder, and people began running about in all directions, tumbling up against each other. However, they got settled down in a minute or 2, and the game began. Alice thought she had never seen such a curious croquet ground in her life. It was all ridges and furrows. The croquet balls were live hedgehogs, and the mallets live flamingos, and the soldiers had to double themselves up and stand on their hands and feet to make the arches. The chief difficulty Alice found at first was in managing her flamingo. She succeeded in getting its body tucked away, comfortably enough, under her arm, with its legs hanging down, but generally, just as she had gotten his neck nicely straightened out and was going to give the hedgehog a blow with its head, it would twist itself round and look up in her face with such a puzzled expression that she could not help but burst out laughing. And when she had got its head down and was going to begin again, It was very provoking to find that the hedgehog had unrolled itself and was in the act of crawling away. Besides all of this, there was generally a ridge or a furrow in the way wherever she wanted to send the hedgehog to, and as the doubled up soldiers were always getting up and walking off to other parts of the ground, Alice soon came to the conclusion that it was a very difficult game indeed. The players all played at once without waiting for turns, quarreling all the while and fighting for the hedgehogs, and in a very short time the queen was in a furious passion and went stamping about, shouting, "Off with its head! Off with her head!" about once in a minute. Alice began to feel very uneasy. To be sure, she had not as yet... To be sure, she had not as yet had any dispute with the queen, but she knew that it might happen at any minute. And then, thought she, what would become of me? They're dreadfully fond of beheading people here. The great wonder is that there's anyone left alive. She was looking about for some way of escape and wondering whether she could get away without being seen, when she noticed a curious appearance in the air. It puzzled her very much at first, but after watching it a minute or two, she made it out to be a grin. And she said to herself, "It's the Cheshire Cat. Now I shall have somebody to talk to." "How are you getting on?" said the cat, as soon as there was mouth enough for it to speak with. Alice waited till the eyes appeared and then nodded. It's no use speaking to it, she thought, till its ears have come, or at least one of them. In another minute the whole head appeared, and then Alice put down her flamingo and began an account of the game, feeling very glad she had someone to listen to her. The cat seemed to think that there was enough of it now in sight, and no more of it appeared. "I don't think they play at all fairly," Alice began, in a rather complaining tone, "and they all quarrel so dreadfully one can't hear oneself speak. And they don't seem to have any rules in particular. At least, if there are, nobody attends to them. And you've no idea how confusing it is, all these things being alive. For instance," and there's Alice, before we go to the next page, with her hedgehog ball rolling away, her flamingo, croquet mallet, looking up at her. I love these illustrations. Okay, on with the Cheshire Cat. And you've no idea how confusing it is, all the things being alive. For instance, oops, almost skipped a page. For instance, there's the arch I've got to go through next, walking about at the other end of the ground. And I should have croqueted the queen's hedgehog just now, only it ran away when it saw mine coming. "How do you like the queen?" said the cat in a low voice. "Not at all," said Alice. "She's so extremely—" Just then she noticed that the queen was close behind her, listening, so she went on. "Likely to win, that it's hardly worthwhile finishing the game." The queen smiled and passed on. "Who are you talking to?" said the king, coming up to Alice and looking at the cat's head with great curiosity. "It's a friend of mine, a Cheshire Cat," said Alice. "Allow me to introduce it." "I don't like the look of it at all," said the king. "However, it may kiss my hand if it likes." "I'd rather not," the cat remarked. "Don't be impertinent," said the king, "and don't look at me like that." He got behind Alice as he spoke. "A cat may look at a king," said Alice. "I've read that in some book, but I don't remember where." "Well, it must be removed," said the king very decidedly, and he called to the queen, who was passing at the moment. "My dear, I wish you would have this cat removed." The queen had only one way of settling all difficulties, great or small. "Off with its head," she said, without even looking around. "I'll fetch the executioner myself," said the king eagerly, and he hurried off. Alice thought she might as well go back and see how the game was going on, as she heard the queen's voice in the distance, screaming with passion. She had already heard her sentence 3 of the players to be executed for having missed their turns, and she did not like the look of things at all, as the game was in such confusion that she never knew whether it was her turn or not. So she went off in search of her hedgehog. The hedgehog was engaged in a fight with another hedgehog, which seemed to Alice an excellent opportunity for croqueting one of them with the other. The only difficulty was that her flamingo was gone across the other side of the garden, where Alice could see it trying in a helpless sort of way to fly up into a tree. By the time she had caught the flamingo and brought it back, the fight was over, and both hedgehogs were out of sight. But it doesn't matter much, thought Alice, as all the arches are gone from this side of the ground. So she tucked it away under her arm that it might not escape again, and went back to have a little more conversation with her friend. When she got back to the Cheshire Cat, she was surprised to find quite a large crowd collected around it. There was a dispute going on between the executioner, the king, and the queen, who were all talking at once, while all the rest were quite silent and looked very uncomfortable. The moment Alice appeared, she was appealed to by all 3 to settle the question, and they repeated their arguments to her. Though, as they all spoke at once, she found it very hard to make out exactly what they said. The executioner's argument was that you couldn't cut off a head unless there was a body to cut it off from, that he had never had to do such a thing before, and he wasn't going to begin at this time of his life. The king's argument was that anything that had a head could be beheaded, and that you weren't to talk nonsense. The queen's argument was that if something wasn't done about it in less than no time, she'd have everybody executed all round. It was this last remark that made the whole party look so grave and anxious. Alice could think of nothing else to say but, "It belongs to the Duchess. You better ask her about it." "She's in prison," said the queen to the executioner. "Fetch her there. Oh, fetch her here." And the executioner went off like an arrow. The cat's head had been fading away at the moment he was gone, and by the time he had come back with the Duchess, it had entirely disappeared. So the king and the executioner ran wildly up and down looking for it, while the rest of the party went back to the game. And we'll stop here. The Mock Turtle story. It's a good place to stop, I suppose. So we all go back to the party. The Duchess is now out of prison. And then we will start back tomorrow with next chapter, the Mock Turtle's story. All right, everybody. I hope that was relaxing. I love reading with you guys. My wonderful, beautiful, shining stars. And we will get back to our book tomorrow. So tuck yourselves in. Say your prayers. Have sweet dreams. And a restful, very restful night's sleep. Get cozy. Make sure there's a glass of water by your bed. Shh. It's time go to sleep. Time to go to sleep. My lovely, lovely shining stars. And I will see you all again in the reading corner tomorrow for our next chapter of Alice in Wonderland. God bless you. Peace, love, and prayers to each and every one of you. Sweet dreams.